All systems. Hello, everyone. I'm Pam Knox. I'm a Chief Strategy Officer at Pam Knox LLC, and I'm a member of the leadership team of Founder Institute Keystone. It's my pleasure to be moderating this panel this evening on behalf of Founder Institute. We are all here because we're passionate about helping founders build great companies. We have assembled a diverse panel of experts who will speak to the many facets of the funding formula for founders like yourselves. This event will be an engaging hour as I pose a series of questions to our panelists, and then I will direct further questions that come from you, the audience. So again, I can't help but encourage you to use the QA box function below your screen to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. With me today is Ellen Weber, Bill Rivkin, Daniel Rosenthal, Joe Daniels, and Jedi Weller. I'm going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves so that you as participants get a sense of the depth of the expertise and just who here we've assembled for the experts to direct our conversation about funding this evening. So Ellen, how about if you kick it off for us and tell us who you are, where you're working, what you're doing, and where your area of expertise is tonight.
Sure. So I'm Ellen Weber. I'm the executive director of one of the leading angel groups in the Mid-Atlantic region called Robin Hood Ventures. I'm also the executive director of a venture forum called Mid-Atlantic Diamond Ventures, where companies get some coaching and an opportunity to meet with investors.
Thank you and welcome, Ellen. Bill, how about you take us up next to tell us where you're from?
Sure, thanks, Pam. Bill Rivkin, Citizens Bank, Business Banking. I'm here basically to talk about bank funding, fintech funding. I've been a relationship manager for Citizens for over 20 years, and I've been handling business banking for the last 8. So pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you with us on board tonight. Thank you, Bill, for giving us your time tonight. Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel. I currently work at Start Engine, which is an equity crowdfunding platform, as the partnerships manager. So working with VCs, angels, other tech companies, anyone and everyone that works with startups to find the next great founder and help them raise capital.
Welcome, Daniel. Jedi, take it away and let us know who you are.
Cool. Thanks, Pam. Hey everyone, my name is Jedi Weller. It's short for Jedediah. Just call me Jedi, like Star Wars. I'm the founder of OpenForge Enterprises. That's our parent company. Under that is OpenForge LLC. We build mobile applications worldwide. We have about 24 million users across the different mobile apps that we built, so do a lot in that space. And then I also recently have created a second venture as well called Startup Wars, and Startup Wars is ed tech for startup education, which has been a lot of fun. So I'm here today to really talk about creative fundraising, in terms of basically using your own time, your own materials, your own way of self-funding as long as possible, and also some other ways of getting creative as well. So that's where I'm coming in.
Nothing like infusing a little creativity and funding. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So last but not least, let's introduce Joe Daniels. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Daniels. I'm a partner and the co-chair of the emerging companies practice at Nelson Mullins, which is a large, 1,000+ lawyer, full service law firm. What that means is we basically have a department for everything a business needs, like corporate, like me, intellectual property, litigation, real estate, tax, etc. We have we're in about 43 states and 30 offices across the US. We don't have the international offices, but we have a global practice because we've been around for so long. And I'm the co-chair again of an 80 lawyer strong emerging companies group. And we basically focus on formation, financing, growth, and exit, which is helping everybody from one person with a business plan to a serial entrepreneur that's going to be using the same team over and over again on forming the correct type of company, structuring it correctly, helping them raise successive rounds of angel and venture capital financing, then expanding through growth transactions, whether that's an acquisition or a commercial agreement or an international joint venture, and then helping them exit through M&A deals or IPOs. And we're backed up by 150 M&A lawyers when those transactions come along, if we don't have enough bandwidth in our own group, as well as 40 capital markets lawyers who do IPOs and SPAC and de-SPAC transactions. And we're consistently ranked in the sort of rankings as top as high as top 3 in our region or a particular region, and top 10 generally nationally. I've been doing this for about 26 years, and I've, including 8 in California during the .com days. I basically, out of law school, joined the group that took Netscape public and sold it to AOL. And I focus on high growth sectors like tech and life sciences.
Great, thank you for that introduction, Joe, and giving us your background. Hey, I can tell, I'm hoping that our participants, that the excitement is brewing, because I think this is tremendous panel that we've assembled. I think we've really closed the ecosystem here for all things funding. We've got just about everything represented. So I'm excited to get us started. But before I do, I just want to remind our panelists that I will be directing the flow of the questions to you as individuals. And then if after somebody has answered the question, if you feel that you can add value to their answer and you want to weigh in, take yourself off of mute. And then that'll give me the high sign to let me know that you have something to add. So let's take it away. So when we're talking about funding and you want to know, we got questions about funding, how do I go, where do I find them? But before we even get to that funding piece, there's this thing called the pitch deck. And this webinar is not about preparing a pitch deck, but it plays such an important role in communicating and positioning your business to these potential investors. So I just want to just address it in a little way to make sure that we've got some things in order for our pitch deck, but maybe a future webinar is in order on pitch decks. So I'm going to ask the founders, the experts here, before a founder even approaches a prospective investor, what are your 2, emphasis on 2 or 1, but no more than 2, best tips that you would advise founders to include in order to showcase and demonstrate value in their pitch? Kind of that best practice. I'll give you all a chance to answer. And then that way we just might arrive at a top 10, given we've got 5 experts. So Daniel, I'm going to ask you to start us off.
Yeah, so I think I'll go with 2 things since I have them on top of mind. When creating a pitch deck and when, giving a presentation and pitching your company, is have a very clear story. So, you're going from point A to point B, which is, the solution and how you're getting to customers. Make it very clear and easy to understand. You always have to remember, yes, these are institutions with capital, but you're pitching to people at the end of the day. And you want them to be able to understand what you're doing and why it's important and how it might impact those as individuals. The other pointer is, you're going to hear this a lot, I'm sure, but have your pitch down to the exact second, the exact word. You want to be buttoned up and, make sure you know what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you for tipping us off there, leading us off, and hope we're all taking notes. Jedi, how about you? What would you 2 points that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I love the point about the story. I think to that point, be visual as much as possible, especially if you're sending the pitch to investors with ahead of time, or in order to get a conversation going. When you're telling the story, a picture speaks 1,000 words. I've seen a lot of pitch decks that have literally 1,000 words, and you'll generally get lost, right? So just keep it succinct, brief, keep it visual. Maybe even hire a designer to help you. You can have I know the services out there that provide just pitch deck design services for like $200, right? They don't do the content, but they just do the design once you have the content, and that might be something that's worthwhile as well.
All right, thank you for that share. Ellen, how about you?
So, again, it goes back to the story and the consistency of the story. So if you're telling us you're going to have, 1 million D2C customers in 5 years, you better make sure that you're, the way you describe how you're going to go to market, how you are how much you're spending, who you're hiring, who's on your team, that all of those things flow together. So I'm going to reiterate story, but just, kind of amplify that a little bit. And then I think another thing that sometimes founders are told not to include in a pitch deck, and it makes me nuts, is they're told not to include financials in a pitch deck. I really can't evaluate a company if I don't see the numbers, if I don't see how you're thinking about the financial projections, how you're seeing growth, how you're seeing what your exit might be. This is really important to us.
Great. Thanks for introducing that point. Bill, what might you add in terms of a tip or two on creating a pitch deck?
Well, that's certainly 100% in agreement with Ellen and the numbers. And you can feel comfortable putting out a wow number as long as you have an explanation as to how that wow number is going to make sense. So whether it's a big ask, or it's a big market, or it's big revenue, or it's big profit, you want to make sure that you're getting that into the pitch deck, and that you have a knowledge that you can speak around how you came up with that number and why that number makes sense. So that's tip 1 and 2.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Joe, bring us up at the end here. What can you add to our tip decks on our pitch decks here?
Can you guys hear that alarm? I didn't plan that. So, I'm gonna second what Dan and Jedi said. It's really super important to not make the person just like try to figure out what all these things mean on the page, right? Too busy of a slide. It's like a swamp for an army, right? You just get stuck there and then maybe get distracted and go to do something else. So really try to keep it simple, not too busy on the slides. And I think the best way, if you're not someone who has systematically gone out there and created pitch decks and raised money, or got a bigger budget for a company, somebody's not really super good at decks, or if you need some assistance with preparing the financial projections, you have to go out there and you have to get those resources, whether that's someone who can help you build the deck or someone who can help you build the projections.
All right. Thank you for that, panelists. I appreciate the top 10 list that we've been given, and I'd also add some enthusiasm to all our storytelling aspect. So we want to keep the enthusiasm going, and I know you came here to learn about funding. So we're going to, before you sit there and thinking that there's not a wing and a prayer that you're going to get funding, or you're really worried about it, some of you might be sitting there and telling you that you really just, what you need is an angel. So funny thing, we've got someone with an expert on angel investing. And Ellen, why don't you start us off by educating us a little bit about angel investments? Let's start, because we don't know the sophistication, and I should say along the journey, how far into the journey of funding our folks are. What is an angel investor, and where can I go find them?
Okay, great. So that's an hour discussion right there, Pam, but I'll try and net it out. So first of all, you do not want to talk to angels until you've done all the creative financing that Jedi was talking about, and until you've explored things like crowdfunding that Daniel will talk about. You want to use all your own money, or friends' money, or your own time, whatever you can do. You want to get the company as far as you can before you go to investors, so that you can maximize the value and the interest. And that's really important. I spend a lot of time telling people, don't come to us yet. It's not in your best interest. The best time to come to an angel investor is when you're at the point of senior moment, product market fit. Okay, when you can show that you have a product that the market wants and that someone will actually pay for it. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have revenue. It means you have to be able to prove that people will buy it. So that's the right point to come to angels for funding. But you want to be talking to them all along the way. So for example, my group, Robinhood, we have office hours. We go to events. We want to get to know you early on. We'd love to mentor and guide and give advice. And one of the best ways to get funding is to ask for advice, and vice versa. What else did you want to know, Pam? You asked, how do I find them?
Yeah, is there a way, in a short answer, how do you find them? Because my, other question was going to be, the optimal time, but you just kind of alluded to that, what
Mhm.
makes the optimal time and some of the values that need to be in place to ideally go after angel funding. But how might I just begin my journey in looking for them?
Yeah. So there's a couple things you can do. One is if you go to some of the events in your local ecosystem, you will usually find a few angel investors there, and talk to them. They want to talk to you. That's why they're there. There's also different types of demo events. You don't have to be presenting yourself to go, especially if it's you don't have to be presenting yourself to go necessarily. You can just go and listen and meet people at these events. So lots of places to meet them. And it doesn't hurt to get an introduction from someone, but that used to be thought you had to have an introduction to talk to an angel. That is not the case anymore. All kinds of ways to find them online.
Great. Thank you, Ellen. And again, I encourage our participants, if there any of these answers from our expert panelists, prompt questions, use the QA box to drop your questions in. So as we move on from angel investor, let's suppose you don't want to just kind of put all your eggs in one basket and just kind of find that one angel investor, but you feel more comfortable in a crowd. So I'm going to open it up to Daniel to tell us a little bit about crowdfunding and walk us through it, define what crowdfunding is, tell us who it's for and why.
Yeah, so crowdfunding is a pretty broad term that covers a few different sectors. There's rewards-based crowdfunding, which is your Indiegogos, your Kickstarters, your GoFundMes, people raising money for whether it's pre-sales or a project, a nonprofit maybe. And then there's equity crowdfunding, which is what I work in and what Start Engine does. And now equity crowdfunding is very similar to getting funds from an institution. You are a startup or a private company, and you're offering securities, whether it be a convertible note, common shares, preferred shares. But instead of getting it from one or two angels, you can get it from 100, 500, or 10,000 investors. So instead of getting one check from one or two people, you're getting 500 checks that are just much smaller. So typically these are for companies, maybe they have an experienced founder, maybe there's a mission behind the company, it's green tech, it's climate. Maybe the founder just wants a community to support them. If it's a CPG product, if you get 1,000 investors, that's going to be 1,000 new customers, 1,000 evangelists who are going to tell their friends, their aunts, their uncles, and their grandparents about whatever you just invested in. So, it really depends on each company. However, as a founder, you get to set your own terms. You get to go out and market your product or company, whether it's B2B, B2C, B2B2C, whatever it is. So, you're not just raising capital, but you're marketing your product, you're getting new connections. Now, most of the investors will be passive. So you're protecting your board seats, you're protecting your voting rights. But you never know what investor is going to help you meet, a distributor, or, maybe they're an expert in a certain industry and they can help you out making some introductions here and there. Really crowdfunding can be for every and any company. It just depends on your fundraising goals. You're not getting a check for $10 million in 3 days. It might take, depending on how much you're raising. If you're raising 500,000, it could take a couple weeks. If you're raising, 60 million, like we have one company looking to do right now, it could take 6 to 12 months. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And typically you're seeing companies who have some form of traction. So maybe they've gotten one investment from an angel, or they've done a friends and family round. Maybe they've generated $50,000 in annual revenue. Really, as long as you can market something exciting about your campaign, you're a successful founder, you have experience in the industry, you have a great patent, really anything to get people excited about your crowdfunding campaign. And you can raise anywhere from 100,000 to $75 million.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate you also adding, Ellen, to give us that kind of placeholder of where in your life cycle of your startup would be more optimal. And so you referenced that traction. So we've got this diverse panel, and let's hear about another investment vehicle, bank funding. Bill, can you share with us some of the benefits or differentiating factors of securing this type of funding?
Absolutely. So if you take a search on Google, you'll see, just ask for funding, probably a half a dozen to 2 dozen banks pop up. So bank funding is definitely an option for many businesses that may be just sort of starting out, or maybe you've got some revenue and you're looking for some additional sources. One of the big things with bank funding is that the more banks you use, the more money you will get. And what I mean by that is typically banks like to give a lot of small loans, and they're really concerned when they have to give one big loan. So many people will just go out, they might talk to 3 or 4 or 5 different banks, maybe make an application, and they'll end up with funding for maybe 2 or 3 of those banks. And a lot of it is just based upon the personal resources of the founder. So you don't necessarily have to have a revenue model that is generating significant revenue for you to be bankable from either a traditional bank, digital lender, or possibly somebody that might be dealing with the SBA, the Small Business Administration. So it's a great opportunity for people to get additional funding, maybe outside, and you don't necessarily have to give up equity in your business, and you certainly just need maybe a bank statement and some knowledge of your financials.
Bill, is there kind of a best practice to advise founders to how to best prepare, things that we could prepare within our businesses to go after bank funding?
Absolutely. Nowadays, your bank statement is your tax return. So you have to keep that bank statement as clean, as clear, and as easy for somebody to understand as possible. So what that means is you don't necessarily want to put frivolous expenses on your bank statement. You want to make sure that you're trying to maintain as much cash in that account, that you have money coming in, money going out, those types of things. Because if you can keep that bank statement clear, then a bank can understand sort of what your revenue model looks like and whether or not you're going to be able to have funds in the future to pay them back. So that's by far the best thing to do. And then, of course, keep your personal credit looking as good as you possibly can. A lot of founders get overextended personally, maybe because they're doing, their money's coming in slower than the money is going out. But absolutely take advantage of some of the other things like credit card and advanced funding. Maybe if you're taking credit cards or you're using a credit card, those types of things are absolutely helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. So now from bank funding, we're going to go to maybe that good old-fashioned bootstrapping. Not that I'm insinuating that Jedi is old-fashioned, but really on the creative side of being successful. Jedi has met with success through the creativity of bootstrapping. Tell us why you chose bootstrapping as a funding vehicle and what the benefits have been for you.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like my experiences in it, when I started my first business, me and my co-founder, we started it with about less than $1,000, I'd say. We didn't have a business model proven. We didn't know even exactly where we wanted to go with it, but we knew what we were good at. I was good on the development side, on sales side. She was good on design. And so we took that knowledge and we said, okay, let's start offering our services, right? As we offer our services, we'll learn more. We'll learn about how to create the processes that come about, when building a business. We'll learn how to do hiring, how to create a team, right? We'll start making contacts in the industry for, not only customers, but, potential investors, potential partners. And that process worked really, really well. We were able to, build up our company, get it to the multi-million-dollar mark, right? And all the while, we can start, every time that there's profit at the end of every quarter, we have basically reinvested that profit into R&D for startup funds. And what I see a lot of the successful, startups that I see who have also bootstrapped have taken a similar approach. They've done either a hybrid approach initially, where they said, okay, you know what, I had this great idea. I want to, build it out, but I don't have a ton of paying customers yet. I'm still trying to figure out my business model. Not really, appropriate for VC at all. Not even really appropriate for angel yet. And what should I do? Well, I'm here to basically tell you, you don't have to raise capital, at least initially. You can do a hybrid approach, either offer a service as you're building a product, or you could do pre-sales, right? Pre-sales are another great way, depending on the regulations of gaining interest and also, determining, okay, are you actually going to be able to purchase it? Stuff like that is like a really good approach. To date, I know for our one company, which is Startup Wars, to date, I've invested probably easily over $500,000, and it hasn't cost me anything because I did that from a a pre-tax perspective. So, when you have that built up, it really allows you to do a lot of different things and allows you to pivot very quickly. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's a good analogy there, because I was thinking as you were talking about whether there were any advantages to kind of holding off funding, to kicking the can down the lane a little bit further. Is there any advantages inherent in that?
Yeah, definitely. Like well, I mean, obviously, you guys know when you're raising capital, you are bringing on partners into your organization, and a partner has a vote, right? The more votes that you have, it could be argued the slower an organization will go, because you'll be able to pivot, less quickly. As an example, when we were doing our one company, we were originally going to market for a consumer version, right? That was our intent. And once we got halfway through a consumer version, we realized our customers said, you know what, Jedi, we love this app, but we cannot have it as a mobile app. It has to be web. And we said, oh man, this is a big deal, because now we're going to pivot from consumer to education. They have different requirements. If I had gone out and did fundraising early on when we were consumer, I would have approached investors who have network in consumer gaming and who are knowledgeable in that space, who can provide additional value outside of just the cash, right? If I would have made that pivot then after getting those investors, now those investors that I had, right, who are partnered, A, they might not agree with the pivot. That might not be what they signed up for. And B, they wouldn't be the right investors to work with us because we're not in that space anymore, right? So it would be limited the value that they could provide and the growth that they could help us have. So I think that's like a great case study, a great example of why you should wait as long as possible to get funding, because use it to accelerate growth once you have that market cornered, right? Once you're in a spot and you know exactly what you're selling, and now it's just a matter of resources because you've already proven it. That's like the perfect time to raise capital. But before then, there's a lot of risks that come into raising capital really early.
Ellen, I see you've come off mute. Do you want to echo that, or just
I
expand upon it, or offer a different perspective?
Yeah, no. I agree with him completely, and I just wanted to amplify it a little bit. Again, a lot of people start too early trying to raise money. A lot of people see raising money as the win. Raising money is not the win. Building the company is the win. And raising money is a job in and of itself. And sometimes I see founders losing focus on building the company while they're trying to raise money. So, I can't agree enough with the other folks on the panel. But when you have to have funding, then and the timing is right, then come to us and we'll work with you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to amplify that, because I think what we're showing our participants that are dialed into our webinar this evening is that, this is an intricate landscape towards funding, and it's intricate landscape could be challenging at time to navigate. So that a good business attorney is someone that can help you navigate it and avoid some of these potential landmines that may be out there in the journey, but also to optimize your journey. So with us tonight, we have our expert in securing a business attorney to help you guide you on this journey, not only to navigate, but to negotiate along the way. And so Joe, can you tell us when is the best time to align yourself with a business attorney in this journey towards funding?
Yeah, I mean, I always say the short answer is whenever you have more than one person involved with the business, or you have material obligations of this business, like co-working space license, or not to mention like a real estate lease, or you have a customer and you have to perform for that customer, and they could be, you could be potentially liable, or the company would be for non-performance. And you want to form a company, you want to form it correctly. And there's very inexpensive ways to do that. And when you're building sort of a, let's say, venture model company, a company that is probably going to have to raise other people's money to scale, and where your basic goal is to get your stock for free, and then build a big company and then sell it or take it public, the venture model, then you want to form that as a C Corp, and you want to form it as a Delaware C Corp. That's the first thing. And then secondly, between that time and the time you go out and you raise money, whether you're bootstrapping or you're borrowing from a bank or you're crowdfunding or whatever, you have to make sure that you have all this, equity correctly documented. You have to have the right service agreements in place with everybody on the team, because when you finally get to institutional money, they're going to want all those things. They're going to check the box, and then it's much better to do it, like maintain it a little bit at a time, going forward with someone who is an expert at, representing startups. And we have a, expert way of dealing with the startup not generally being able to pay for our super big law firm services, because most of the people who are experts at emerging companies, they're inside the super big law firms, right? And, how do you get like a regulatory question about fintech or med tech, or God knows what, insurance or in tech or something, answered, unless you have that kind of a relationship. In other words, the groups like mine tend to defer fees until you raise, right? So there's a lot of maintenance that has to go on. And then I totally agree with what everybody said about trying to really build a company of substance before you go out and try to raise from angels or venture capital firms. A lot of people buy into the dream of, okay, I have a deck, I have an idea, and then I'm going to go raise 10 million in an A round at a 40 million pre from Andreessen Horowitz, just because it's such a fantastic idea. And I built this team of Stanford geeks, or whatever it is that you have with you, maybe Carnegie Mellon geeks or something, right? That's just, like 1 in 10 billion people who's gone and tried to do that have actually succeeded at that. And what I would share is that the typical, this is always different by industry and by how hot the space is and everything. But to get an institutional seed round, which is usually raising, let's say, $2 to 10 million bucks, many of the early stage VCs are looking for $1 million in annual run rate, which means $83K a month for a couple of months, and all the facts and criteria making it look like it's going to continue and significantly ramp up. So that's a real company. It's very established. And whether you have to do, can you guys still hear me? Because it says I have that. Okay. So whether you have to crowdfund or borrow money for, buy inventory or something, or bootstrap in creative ways to get there, that's what you have to do. And everybody hates to hear that, but that's the reality. And then, for an A round, the average, I would say the annual run rate that funds are looking for, and this is where you're raising 10 million plus, and the valuations are now in the median, 35 million to 45 million range. The annual run rate is usually 2 to 5 million, right? And it's more like 3 than 2. 2 is only in like a super hot space. So you have to think about, how do I build my startup from 0 up to that million in annual run rate, and then after you've done that, and raising enough in the seed round so that you can get to the A round, because otherwise you'll run out of money, and then you'll have to shut it down, right? So yeah, I think that answers some of your questions. Was there another one left in there?
Well, one question is that, so our participants now have become aware that, it's really important to have a business attorney along for the journey to help them navigate and negotiate. give me the top 2 things I should be looking for and taking into consideration when I'm hiring a business attorney.
Yeah. I mean, you would definitely want to hire a business attorney who is an expert at the startup space. I mean, I know I've been doing it for 26 years, so I'm obviously talking about myself. But and I was in the group that took Netscape public, and then I worked for Andreessen Horowitz. Okay, so that looks cool and everything, but it really makes a difference because I know how to set this company up from day one when you first incorporate it, all the way up to the IPO, and any kind of M&A deal in between. How to structure everything, how to set up all the agreements, so that anybody who's doing diligence on the company is not going to complain and want things redone, or other people to have to, people that may not like you anymore to have to come back and sign things and things like that. That's fundamentally what is making your life seamless from a legal point. Not to mention the fact that you're trying to, reduce your likelihood of getting sued by a disappointed former employee or founder or something. Or a commercial counterparty, your customers. You don't want any lawsuits, so you want to minimize that as much as possible. So, obviously, like if you're a web-based company, you want to have the right terms of use and privacy policy. And there's only about 20 little, sometimes big groups of people at the big law firms, and really 10 that I would recommend in the country that are good at the space. And you just have to research that and find out. Because if you just go to anyone like that happens to be a big law firm name in your town, they may just not have anyone who knows anything about space.
Well, I think that's critical. So thanks for that advice, because I think in securing attorneys or, could be extended to other professional services. The services you get sometimes is only as good and as expert as the person in front of you holding your hand and being with you on that case, as opposed to, the law firm. But do your homework, consider resources, look at reviews, and set up and have those conversations. So now I want to move on to, now that we know, more than we did when we started on our funding options, we're excited to get in front of some of these potential funders. So if we make the assumption that some of this early stage funding is largely local, what are some resources right here in Philadelphia that founders can tap into? How do I get to the people with the money? I want to, raise a hand, come off mute, share with me a tip or best practice on how to build your network for this part of the funding formula. So how can I create a network of people that I know and engage with to begin this funding journey, whether I'm going the banking route, the crowdfunding, whatever? Just what do you have to share for our participants? Ellen.
I can kick it off from a very micro local level. First of all, you can start with your university. They will very often have resources who can help you tie in with different people, and they have mentors that can give you advice. I think let's say you're in the Mid-Atlantic region. I think I recognize a lot of the names. You're in the Mid-Atlantic region. There's groups like Philly Startup Leaders. There's an awesome picnic on August 4th. There'll be like 500 people there. You should be there if you're even thinking about, starting up a company. There's a meetup for almost every industry and stage. And, it's hard to find the door, but once you find the door and open it, there's this like very loving crowd that just wants to really help you and support you. So don't be shy about opening up that door.
Thanks, Ellen. Jedi, you want to weigh in?
Yeah. I love what Ellen said about the universities. Universities are great. And in terms of like networking events, one of the things that I learned probably too late that I would hope everyone else will learn a little bit sooner is not every networking event is created equal for your industry, right? So when you're going out and you're networking, like one of the things I used to do when I started Web Junto in 2014, I used to go to every networking event in the city, right? Just everything. And they were fun. It was great. I met so many amazing people, but I just don't have the time for that anymore. And I've realized that being hyper focused on what type of networking event you're going to is really going to be beneficial. So if you see just like a general one, you should ask yourself as a founder, I'm about to spend 3 hours of my time going to this event. right? What are the odds that I'm going to meet someone, that's relevant to what I am currently looking for, or what's the value of that versus the value of me spending 3 extra hours doing something else, right? Working with a team, working on the product, perfecting, the sales pitch, XYZ. So, your time as a founder is very, very important. It's your most limiting commodity. So just, as you're doing networking events and looking for these founders, I definitely suggest, be very cognizant and intentional on where you're going and what you're looking for.
All right, I like that value add. Thank you for sharing that. Bill, do you have something to add?
Sure, yeah. Be very aware when you talk about the colleges and universities. Community colleges have done a lot with the Small Business Administration. They're a great way to get invited to other business startup events. They tend to have mentors like the SCORE individuals, and those are typically retired or other financial professionals that just want to give back time. Because what we have, or what I've found, is a lot of founders are great from an idea standpoint, but sometimes they need to hone in a little bit more on their financial acumen. So that's absolutely helpful from that perspective. And then I would say you definitely can find, beyond just the meetup resources, there are just smaller groups. So know the markets you want to play in, and just make sure that you're attending the groups and the events in that particular market.
Thank you. I appreciate that tip, because I also just think it's this kind of like that proverbial birds of a feather flock together. Hang with the folks that, will, elevate your expertise, elevate your knowledge, elevate some resources, and build those relationships for you, which is something that Founders Institute does. All of you now, as being part of this webinar, have kind of gotten into the Founder Institute ecosystem. I would encourage you to seek out additional webinars that are provided, different events, get involved in a community and a cohort that can help you answer those questions relative to your business building. I want to, before we go open it up for questions that we've received from the audience, I want to ask our panelists here, given that all funding, is being dispersed in a challenging economy right now, give me your top consideration that founders should take into account when they're seeking funding in today's economy. Daniel.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to think about. One of them is, I know some people have said, you don't always need to raise, bootstrap as much as you can. And I definitely agree with that in a sense. Something we feel is important at Start Engine and equity crowdfunding is you should always be raising. You never know when you're going to need more cash, when you're going to need that next check, or how long your runway is going to be, depending on the market conditions. Start Engine as a company, our financials are all public, part of crowdfunding. We have roughly $15 million in cash in the bank. And that's because we raised $30 million this past fall when we probably didn't need to. But, hindsight's 2020. And now we look back and say, you know what, that actually was a great idea. We have all this cash. We have almost 5 years of runway ahead of us, even if we can't raise more money. And, it's always thinking about, what am I going to need 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now to set you up for future success. And I also think, like I said, cash is king. So being smart about how you're spending, whether that's cutting unnecessary costs, finding scrappier ways to market your company, and showing people who are going to be investing, whether it's angels, VCs, crowdfunding, that you know how to be responsible and you can work around any challenges coming your way. So again, being smart with your cash, getting creative, maybe finding workarounds for, paid solutions you were previously using, and just kind of figuring it out and, getting to the nitty-gritty of it on your own.
Good advice. Good advice for this economy as it's volatile, ups and downs, and we can ride it and still be successful. I want to open it up. I was remiss in introducing my wingman, Don, at the start. Don, have you been ever able to curate some of our questions from the audience that we might put out to the participants here or our panelists?
Yes, thanks, Pam. Certainly did also wanted to make sure that I heard Joe being, way too modest about, plugging the fact that, since this is an FI forum, I want to say Joe has incorporated dozens, if not maybe hundreds, I don't even know, of FI startups. So I certainly, when it comes to choosing, somebody that knows what they're doing, the proof's in the pudding. There are, again, many extremely successful FI startups that have come through Joe. So thank you for all of that. And thank you in advance to, all the panelists and everybody else. Is the FI has all these wonderful mentors. So as we go through this, ask your mentors, whether they're from FI or otherwhere, about, where we,
And
how we
also,
do.
Don, you can't forget that, the reason why, well, I mean, the reason why I continue to mentor so many different cities, San Diego to Boston to New York, DC to Austin, Dallas, and Houston, and you, is because it really sort of filters down a good set of founders, right? Because you do a lot of screening, you do a lot of education, and those are the kinds of people that you want to represent. And in fact, just to plug it even further, we just closed 2 seed rounds in the past month and a half of 2 million plus for one company in San Diego, one company in New York City. So right back at you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Joe, too, for the work that you're doing with FI. So do we have any questions that we can
Absolutely, yes.
answer?
That was next. So we have a question about, when you're looking to raise a second round, right? We have talked a lot about, when do you start? There's an interesting question here about how about your second round? So, you've done your pre-seed, maybe an angel round. Now you're looking to seed. How do you figure out the different target audience and any metrics that they're looking for, et cetera?
I can jump in to kick that off. I
Okay.
think one thing you need to ask yourself is, what's your goal for this round of funding? So each form of capital is going to come with its pros and cons. If you're going to a VC, you're likely going to get industry connections. You're going to get experts who know your product, who know your company, who are going to be able to help connect you to distributors or other enterprise firms. Whatever it is you're doing, they can probably help. If your goal is to market your product and just you need capital to, fund production or, just gain exposure, crowdfunding might be the option. If you don't want to dilute your founders or your co-founders, banking is probably the way to go. So aside from that, I think it's really pushing the story of, the first round of funding, it's great. You need to get your business off the ground. The second round, you also want to, like we said before, tell the story of, great, you've started the company, you have a direction. Where is this next batch of funding going to take you to get to that end journey?
Good information to share. I am aware, and we're coming up on the top of the hour. I did say this would be an engaging hour. I'm more than willing to extend it as our panelists are able to hang with us so we can get some more of these questions answered. So with that, I'd like to move to another question, Don.
Okay, I'm going to read this slowly because I'm trying to digest it. So when it comes to funding, what factors influence the key considerations that identifying better
I
resources?
mean, she's talking about pre-seed funding. How do you get pre-seed funding to pay for your own product?
Joe, could I let Don finish it for a minute? He's my wingman, but thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, complete the question, Don. Thank you.
The better research in terms of enhancing growth related to creativity enhancement and better reach. Okay. Now, Joe, if you can answer that.
Joe, do you have a clue to start us off on answering that?
Yeah, I mean, like Ellen was saying, I mean, she's part of all these angel groups in town, and you've got to get networked in front of all of the people that invest in pre-seed. You have some pre-seed venture funds, like Sequoia Capital, the biggest fund in the world, or one of them. They just started a pre-seed division, and it's they have them all over the country. You have to find out who they are and find out what their criteria are, and if it's a good fit, then that would be, or the angels or the accelerators, you know, crowdfunding, basically do whatever it takes to you know, raise the amount of money that you think you need to build that product and develop the criteria for the seed round, right? You know, you have to have a plan to get to the seed round.
Does anybody else have something of value to add? Ellen?
Well, I think that actually feeds the next question about what do you do, you know, even if you need money just to get to that very first step. and you know, also in terms of milestones. So that, and Don, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on it, but it does feed what Joe was saying. So there are so many different ways of raising money at the very beginning. In addition to the creative things that Jedi was talking about, there's pitch. You know, one of my former students, he won like $200,000 at different pitch competitions all over the state. He was a master pitcher, and he took advantage of it. There are a lot of like little local funding agencies that have, you know, small amounts of money to give you to test a hypothesis. If you fit into a certain demographic, whether that's, you know, woman, underrepresented entrepreneur, maybe, you know, chemicals, whatever it is, there's little pockets of money to seed those types of entrepreneurs as well. So you really do want to do your research on what all the resources are that are available to you, both on a local level and on a national level. This is a really rich time in terms of having a lot of people focused on trying to help entrepreneurs rise up.
Thank you, Ellen. And I will actually, you know, I don't know if you were involved with Mid-Atlantic Diamond Ventures 15 or so years ago, but I was actually part of a group that presented. And, you know, I'll have to say it was a great learning experience, and the people that we, you know, came up afterwards and talked to. So I agree with you. I certainly would encourage people to reach out to you and your organization and similar organizations. Go out and pitch. Even if you don't win anything, you will learn, you will get better at it, and people will come up to you and say, I enjoyed your pitch. Even if you said everything backwards and you know, spilled soup on yourself, people will come up to you, and they're very kind. There's a lot of really good people in the ecosystem, so find them.
Right. I don't mean to hog, but you need to get advice from Joe before you do this. But one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs do is keep everything a secret. They're afraid if they tell you what their idea is, that someone's going to steal it. If your idea is that stealable, it's not that fundable. So tell everybody you know within whatever constraints Joe gives you, because he'll give you, you know, he'll give you your borders or your edges of what you can and can't talk about. But don't ask people to sign NDAs. Share as freely as you can. You never know who if the person sitting next to you on the plane is the investor or, you know, a potential advisor or expert in your field. You want to talk to as many people as you can within that, you know, within whatever boundaries Joe would tell you to follow.
Yeah, it's very easy. You just don't want to reveal your trade secrets. And then, of course, what is a trade secret? So you can look at it online. You can send me an email. I'll explain it to you. So, and for this anonymous attendee, about the main thing I learned over 20 years in the legal startup world, I mean, the biggest revolutions have been in software, where basically it's just not as capital intensive to build a, you know, we didn't even have smartphones 20 years ago, capital intensive to build an app or a software application or a cloud-based application, right? Or to store data. Instead of having a giant server farm of your own, you can just store it on the cloud. All these things. So basically, because the software models are not as capital intensive, it sort of means it's harder on the founder because they have to build a better, more developed product and show traction before a lot of people will be interested in investing, because they really want to see that management team differentiating that product and giving them the FOMO that they need to write the check. I mean, that's basically it. It hasn't really, it's improved, of course, in biotech and medical device and, you know, these other sectors But I don't think it's really improved in semiconductors, right? Like you can't build a fab for a lot cheaper than you could back 20 years ago. So that's why you see super high and fast growth valuations in software.
Okay, important.
And I bet
important
like
points.
90% of the people on the line are all software entrepreneurs.
Jedi, you want to weigh in on that? You have your hand raised. Was it to amplify what Joe said or to offer a different perspective?
Yeah, no, definitely amplifying. I mean, like, I build software for a living. So, I mean, Joe's absolutely right. It's so inexpensive to build software compared to any other industry. And I saw Nancy had a question in the chat that I think is kind of like related to this. And she had asked, I know it's being said that you shouldn't look for investment until your product market is established, but what happens as a founder if you need the funds to build your product or to build it first? My answer to this, especially if it's going to be a like anything in software space, is going to be, I challenge that you actually need funds. I've worked with so many startups who said, yeah, I need funds to build it. It has to be custom. It has to be XYZ. And a lot of them failed because they tried focusing on building the product and they raised just enough money for the first round or for like the first iteration, not for all of the things that you just don't know that are going to happen, right? And then I worked with other startups who they did the opposite. They said, you know what? We're just going to try to use something that's already existing, and we're going to try to just tweak it a little bit. Whether that's like a Shopify website, whether that's a like one of those drag and drop app builders, or whether it's I know this one startup where they said, you know what? We're not even going to try to build any of our product. They just created a Facebook community for what they wanted to create. They built that Facebook community to like 60,000 people, right? And then they just used that community to fund the entire product. And by that time, they already had 60,000 people who basically helped design the product. So as soon as they were ready to raise capital and actually build it out, they had 60,000 donors, to say, yeah, I already want this product, so I'm here. So you really should not look at building a product first. As a guy who builds products for a living, I'm telling you, please don't build your product first. Get the people, get the community, and then figure out how you're going to build the product. But there's a lot of pre-existing stuff out there.
Thank you, Jedi, preaching it. I want to, earlier someone said, I think it was Daniel was saying about, cash is king, but I would amplify that and add, right, community is king. And it's all about that community. You don't have to go at this alone. We've assembled this panel of experts. We talked about building a network. Great place to start even is just to, reach out to these individuals I'm sure they all have a presence on LinkedIn. Reach out to them, follow them, message them, and further connection. But I'm aware of the time. We're just past 7 a little bit, but I wanted to close it out with going around robin. I'll call on you and to just share with the participants the one thing that you wish you knew when you started this journey, or the one thing that someone did share with you that made all the difference in your journey, either as a founder or a tip that you had that you've shared with the people that you work with that is making all the difference and getting them closer to success and building their business quicker. So, Bill, how about you kick us off?
Perfect. So thank you. Probably the biggest thing is you don't really need $1 million to get your business off the ground. So a lot of times people ask for way too much money in the beginning because they don't really realize how much that they need and what the other resources are. So if you can build one and somebody buys it, you're in a much better place than building 10,000 and waiting for 10,000 people to buy it. So start small, have big dreams, obviously. But when you're looking at funding, you can always go back, especially when dealing with banks.
Okay, Bill, thanks for that perspective. Joe, give us your tip that somebody shared with you or something that you wish you knew when you began.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew this before I started picking clients or deciding, which clients to spend more time with, et cetera. I think that the secret to being a startup entrepreneur, I'm not a super expert. I haven't read a lot of books on that or anything. Is not so much being able to identify a great product idea, or to be resilient or easily coachable, pivot, that kind of thing, which you typically hear. But just being a really good pitch person, someone who can sell the idea of working on this company, of investing, of contributing to this company because of some dream that it's fulfilling, right? Some story that it's a part of. And that sort of answers the question that Nancy had about, like, how do I fund all these expensive developers? Well, I think the idea is to stay away from all the developers that are trying to charge you money, because a lot of the great people that I know that have built companies, I don't know how they found them. I think they found them on websites. They just found engineers around the world who bought into the vision, and they wanted the equity, right? They wanted to work for free on the side after they got home from work or whatever to help build this thing, because they thought it was a great idea. And trying to focus on that kind of think. I mean, that's the kind of thinking that is also prevalent in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco, right? Although there's a lot of super high paid developers out there as well.
Okay, good points, good points. Ellen, how about you? What is something that somebody shared with you that made all the difference, or something you wish you knew in the beginning?
Yeah. So the investor entrepreneur relationship is very long-term. It has outlasted a number of marriages that I know. As an entrepreneur, you need to really interview the investor as much as the investor is interviewing you. You want to make sure that the investor is going to add value. Jedi talked about that a little bit. You want to make sure that the investor is adding value to your company, not just money. As an investor, you want to make sure that the entrepreneur listens, is coachable, is open to, bringing in the right types of people, and taking in information and being able to make decisions with that information.
Thank you, Ellen. Who else has something to share?
I could jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Something I've seen and have experienced is a lot of founders and companies trying to take on much more than they can handle. And what I mean by that is trying to drive 6 different streams of revenue with 4 different product SKUs, and expanding to 6 different cities at once. Wherein companies that I've seen successful and founders I've seen be really successful, they become a master of one and get one product, one service down, and they are the absolute best at it in their industry, instead of being extremely mediocre at 5 different revenue streams. So, really focus on one thing, be the best. And that's not to say don't pivot. If what you're doing is not working and there's another opportunity, you're able to pivot. And that's how a lot of companies end up succeeding. But, do what you do really well before you start expanding into other verticals and categories.
Good advice. Solid foundation first, right? All right, Mr. Creativity Jedi, what are you going to share with us?
Yeah, so I guess like 2 really, really important ones. The first one, time management. Like, find any way to automate anything in your life. One of the best things I ever found was Mixmax, Calendly. Like, just the ability, instead of going back and forth, if me and Ellen wanted to get together for a meeting, instead of going back and forth, oh, what's your schedule like this day? Oh, it doesn't work. We could just send each other a link, and that saves 5 minutes. Well, 5 minutes over the course of 5 years, right? Every week, that's a lot of time, right? Any way you can automate your life, again, like you cannot add extra time for yourself. So that's, find ways to automate. The second thing would be peer advisory groups. I didn't find out about these until my second business, and it was the best thing ever. It's like a group of this panelists, right? All people who have started businesses, who are basically in there to give each other advice, to help each other through problems. It's like group therapy for founders. And that is just like such a important thing. And, I hope everyone, finds that support network. I also I have to make one comment. I think it's so funny. Ellen, I agree with your statement so much about the investor relationships, outliving some marriages. My wife, who is listening to this, she messaged me right as you said that, and she said, "Not our marriage, mister. We're newly married."
Do you need to give her a shout out? It's
Yeah,
just like
but-
any reassurances. You're on right back at you, right?
Yeah, Madonna's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
Well, that's fantastic. I really hope that everybody has found value in this amazing panel of experts that we've put together. I really believe we're all going away tonight better informed is one thing, but really empowered to go after the funding that's going to propel our startup forward, or maybe not go after the funding as Jedi has shared with us. But the diverse perspectives and expertise that you found here tonight is really representative of the wealth of information and mentoring that takes place within the Founder Institute cohorts, particularly, for pre-seed acceleration, those early startups. Founder Institute Keystone is going to have more events like this in the coming weeks, and we encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, Founder Institute Keystone. You're going to receive notices of our resources and the greater ecosystem of resources put forth by FI. Just by virtue of you being a participant in tonight's event, now you're kind of on the inside, you're in that ecosystem. All these events are meant to empower entrepreneurship and the founders. As I said in the opening, we're really passionate about people building successful businesses, but really impacting the world through their innovation, and all that their services and tech and whatever they're creating will serve everybody. I would echo again that if you had that opportunity to take that aptitude test, that'll give you kind of your next steps into furthering, taking advantage and being a part of FI. And even if you're on the fence about whether or not your business idea, maybe you're in that way startup, just nothing beyond an idea, and you're wondering whether your idea even has merit and value. This is like an incubator kind of pool of expertise, mentoring support that Jedi talked about in those small communities. Don, what else can we share before we close out?
Thank you, Pam. You did an amazing job moderating, so thank you. What I'm going to do, for those that need to drop, thank you so much for attending. But what I'm, rather than try to break out into something else, because I don't know that I can do much else, but if you are an attendee and you want to speak, I think you can raise your hand or something, and I can enable you to speak. And then panelists, if you need to drop, you can drop. Otherwise, if you want to engage, then by all means, we'll try. Hopefully, we have a small enough group left that it won't get too loud.
Before everybody goes, I want to echo Don's thank you to, we couldn't do this without the expertise of the panelists, the value you brought, the questions you answered, the insights that we're walking away with. So I want to thank you again for, as Jedi talked about, time. It's hard to get back, but what you did tonight was very valuable, and I'm happy to be a part of it as well tonight. So thank you.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi there, Damien.
How's everything?
Good. How can we help you? You got a question for our small panels? We've got.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, guys. I see my camera. My camera doesn't come on. Oh, well. Hi, guys. Damien Jordan here, CEO and founder of Finally, the world's first job search engine for cannabis users. My question is for the panelists in terms of raising capital. I'm currently raising my first round of capital for $2 million. We have had tremendous traction within our setup, and I just wanted to know what was the best way to get in touch with you guys, whether it was either a warm introduction or if there was something that you had a form for startups like mine to get in front of venture firms and other investors like yourself.
Who has an answer for Damien to point him in the right direction as to some next steps for him? Jedi?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great first step, right? But you said you're looking to just like get in touch with more people, or?
Well, we're raising our first round for 2 million. We're in our beta trial. We've already been approached for acquisition, and we're looking to scale. We're ready to go. I'm excited to meet some investors here in Philly. I've been in the ecosystem for a while now, but you know, we've done a friends and family round as much as we can, but our MVP is we're ready. So
Gotcha.
I just wanted to see, yeah.
Have you raised capital already?
We did the friends and family, did safe notes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I know there is a cannabis related meetup. I think it goes out of Cherry Hill Mall that I've been to a couple times. That one might be a cool one to go to find investors in space. I met a couple people over there.
Damien, I dropped my email in the chat, you know, because the people looking to invest in cannabis is a particularly interesting, subgroup. Drop me an email. I'll point you in whatever direction I can. And I certainly, anyone else on the panel or elsewhere that has some thoughts for him, by all means, put an email, a LinkedIn, a Twitter, whatever, the best way to reach you. But yeah, Damien, I have a few places. Congrats on getting that far. It's not easy. So if you're at this stage with a 2 million round, then I have some people I think you could talk to.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And it doesn't look like I can actually type my email, but I don't know if Don or Pam, if you guys could put my email in as well. But yeah, I just remembered there is a guy I know who does a lot of like fundraising in that space. So I could probably connect you with that person as well.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, don't let the word cannabis throw you guys off. You know, what makes us so unique is, and the core value is we exclusively host employers who do not screen for marijuana or who have dropped marijuana from their drug testing panel. So for us, it's about getting the job seeker who is either a medical patient or if they're in a recreational state to get hired for jobs that they're qualified for. Cannabis is the users that we're seeking, but we also help employers, and that's just our front end. You know, we're also a doctor marketing platform as well. You know, we connect medical physicians with patients that job seek on our site every day. But I would love to, speak further about it. I think there's other people on the road, I'm not really sure, but thank you.
Yeah, totally. And I think that brings up a kind of a good point to what we were talking about earlier. There is definitely such a thing as the right investor and the wrong investor, right? So like the reason we're saying that is even if I were to give you $25,000 right now, right? It doesn't mean I'm actually giving you any value. That might be bad money for you to take because I know nothing about the space. I also know nothing about medical space, right? And so you want to find investors who know the space. So that's why we're looking at connecting you with the right people. Because you'll get so much benefit.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Pattern matching is definitely key. Thank you so much, Jedi and Don. And Ellen and Pam and everybody else. Thank you so much.
Question here. Pete Nicholson, founder of Views, fitness and mindfulness combined to help people integrate their body, mind, spirit. We have paying customers now, recurring monthly memberships, physical classes, and we're developing the digital platform. And I was wondering if anybody knew of any accelerators or investors in the fitness mindfulness space or mentors.
I don't know of a accelerator that's specific to fitness or mindfulness. I know for a fact that we have mentors at FI that I think would be good for you. I guess what I might do is kind of do a reverse engineering, see if there are people on LinkedIn or other places that is like, I would love to have that person as a mentor, and then either reach out or find out, right? Maybe they are a mentor at XYZ Accelerator. So, okay, that's where I want to be. But again, shameless plug, I think FI as the world's largest pre-seed accelerator, we would definitely love to try to help you. again, don't know if we're the right fit, but I would be interested in helping you figure that out.
Cool. I'll drop you a line and we can
You
continue
can
the
also,
conversation.
I put my email on the chat, or you could go to my website at pamknox.com and set up a complimentary free discovery call. I myself, I'm a business mentor with FI, but I also work and certified in mental fitness and mindset as a coach and work with
Oh, awesome.
entrepreneurs. So I'd be happy to just engage in a chat and then see who's in my network that I might share with you as well.
Perfect. That sounds great.
So yeah, there you go, Pam. You're a shining example. Pam's been a great mentor and when you sign up for FI, you get office hours with people like Pam. So yeah, and Bill, and well, me, I guess if you can't get a better mentor, well, I'm around. So
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for the time. It was a great chat.
pleasure.
Thanks for
Cheers.
sharing it with us tonight.
Anybody else that wants to speak or put a question up? Otherwise, if anybody, on the panel wants to sing a song or something, otherwise, I think we're going to wrap.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Jedi-
Well,
Jedi,
we
I thought
didn't
you
we
were
didn't
gonna launch
practice
us
our
with something.
chorus, but we do have a unified voice when it comes to really being your cheerleaders, being passionate about successful businesses, and really happy that you shared the space with us tonight. Don't be strangers. Find us on Founders Institute for more information. Look for our upcoming events, webinars, and as was referenced, you'll see some of us downtown for the picnic on the 4th. And again, thank you, and hope this is, maybe the start of our relationship, but not the end of our relationship, just the beginning of something really special. So thanks again. Thanks to my wingman, Don, and all the expert panelists that we had, including those that hung out late here, Jedi and Bill. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward until next time. Take
Great
care,
job,
everyone.
Pam. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Don. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Sure.